Hi, everyone. We had a great conversation on relationships and happiness today. And for those of you who couldn't make the call, I thought I would do a little bit of an overview for you because we had quite the PowerPoint presentation, and at least you can get the content of this, which I think is really powerful. So the first thing we talked about was what makes a relationship happy. And essentially everybody's human and everybody's different and they have their own personality. So in every single relationship, there are going to be annoyances that come up from the differences that the two people have. And sometimes they're not very annoying and sometimes they're really annoying. But the thing is that these differences that we have become most annoying with the people that we spend the most time with. So they've done studies with couples who have had very, very long relationships and are still happy very late in the relationships. After 40, 50 years, they are still, very happy couples. And what they have found is that in general, it has to do with where attention is paid. And each partner tends to pay more attention to the things that they appreciate about the other person. And they tend to, if not ignore, they tend to minimize the things that annoy them about the other person. So it doesn't mean that they allow themselves to get all beat up or anything, but they just don't take them too seriously. And that difference, whether you're paying attention to what annoys you and it's just getting you more and more upset and irritated with the other person, or whether you're paying attention to what appreciates you and you're getting happier and happier with the other person, that tends to be the key to whether the relationship progresses in a happy way or kind of spirals down. So there have been studies on happiness that talk about a happiness set point, and you can have happy things happen in your life or bad things happen in your life, sad things happen in your life, or horrible things happen in your life, but we tend to all be born with a happiness set point, and after a short period of time, we return to that set point after any event that affects our happiness. So in general, the key to happiness tends to be the question whether or not you can change your happiness set point. So some people are just happy people, and they feel happy most of the time, and some people are not as happy. And so the real question is if in general you're pretty happy, then whether you have a relationship or not, or whether you're in a relationship, you tend to stay that happy. And if you're not really happy, the thing to keep in mind is having the relationship, if you don't have a relationship, having a relationship isn't going to be what makes you happy. What makes you happy will be adjusting your happiness set point. So no circumstance, including relationships, can actually make you happy. The only thing that can make you happy is working on your inner self. Now, there's been research from John Gottman on relationships. This guy has been working on observing couples in relationships since the 1970s, which means he's been going on over 40 years of doing this research. And what he has found is that the conflicts that come up between couples are based on the fact that the couples are different. So it tends to be the same things over and over again. So either one person's a saver and one person's a spender. So the money conversation happens over and over again. One person is a neat freak, one person is a slob. That conversation happens over and over again. Whatever is annoying is usually based on a personality trait, and it's a personality trait that doesn't quite mesh with your personality trait, so the issues that come up tend to stem from those, and they come up over and over again. So how couples handle discussions about these issues that come up over and over again tends to be kind of the deciding factor in how their relationship will go. And when people discuss these issues, there are a few things that he's done research on and found. And the first is that if there is contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling, and what stonewalling means is just not talking at all, in the conversation, then the relationship, he can predict with like 90% accuracy that the relationship will end within 5 years. And he did this specifically by looking at facial expressions. So if there was an expression of judgment or disdain in someone's face as they were interacting with their partner, that expression was kind of like the killer. You could tell that relationship was destined for doom. Then the second thing that not in the short term damaged a relationship, but would damage a relationship in the long term, is a lack of emotional engagement. So the couples may not be having really nasty arguments, but what they're missing is this humor and interest in each other and affection and empathy. They're kind of just bored with each other. And that leads to a relationship ending in about 16 years. However, if one partner at least, so if both partners can do this, great. If both partners can resolve conflict productively, it's great. But if only one partner, and usually it's the wife, and I think that's just because women in general are better at social communication because we have more connections related to social interactions. But if one partner has the skills to resolve conflict productively and can take these ongoing issues that come up over and over again and figure out a way to insert humor into the conversation or to get through these conversations, to have these discussions frequently, because the issues will come up frequently, but to have them in a manner that's not personal and negative, but just more productive, then the relationship can thrive. And for those of you who hear me talk about needs a lot, there are some critical issues in the area of needs that impact relationship, and that is that we get our love and belonging needs met from our relationships in most cases. And the problem with needs are that when we have unmet needs, we tend to sort of block them, which means we're attracted to people who don't give us those needs. And there's a long story behind all that that I'm not going to go into here. But the most important thing to keep in mind is that you have to identify your unmet needs and get them met yourself. So even something like intimacy or being heard, we think these things have to happen from other people. But typically, if you have an unmet need and you're not being heard, it's because you're not hearing yourself. So you have to make sure that you're listening to yourself, that you're making yourself feel important, that you're reassuring yourself, that you're consoling yourself. And once you get those needs met, that's kind of the key to happiness. But also, if you have an unmet need that you don't know about and you're expecting your partner to meet it and you aren't taking responsibility for it, or maybe you just don't even know about it, typically your partner's not going to meet it, and that creates this really horrible energy in your relationship where one person has an expectation and the other person's always disappointing. So what we have to do is take responsibility for getting our needs met. And so here are some steps if you're in an existing relationship, and then on the next slide I have steps if you're wanting to get into a relationship. So 5 steps to improving an existing relationship. The first is to identify your unmet needs and take responsibility for getting them met outside the relationship. You have to do this in order to change the energy in your relationship so we don't have that expectation and disappointment cycle going on. But the interesting thing is once your needs are met, what ends up happening is this abundance kicks in and your partner actually starts giving you what you never got before from your partner. So if it feels like, well, gosh, if my partner's never going to listen to me, then why should I even be in a relationship with this person? But it turns out that if being heard is one of your needs and now you're starting to feel like everybody can hear you, you then begin to notice when your partner's hearing you, you start appreciating it more and the behavior increases. So you end up getting what you need from your partner ultimately. But if you focus on getting what you need met from your partner first, it usually doesn't happen that way. It's a very strange paradox, but that's how it works. If you write down a list of your partner's characteristics that you genuinely appreciate, and then also the personality differences and other issues about the person that you're not too keen on, it kind of gives you an idea of where you stand. And then it becomes, well, are the things that I appreciate worth things that I am not too keen on? Imagine, I want you to think that the things that you're not too keen on or the things that you're annoyed with are things that really aren't going to change from a personality perspective. You might be able to get them to change their behaviors a little bit, but their personality is their personality. So you have to begin to think, have a plan for how you're going to deal with the stuff that annoys you that isn't going to change. Like the person that's a slob, they're always going to be a slob. They're just not going to pay attention. But it's not about you. You have to make it not personal. And if you do that, then you can definitely see some productive changes in your feelings, because your expectations are going to change. Doesn't mean that you have to allow the house to be a mess. But what you can say to yourself is, well, gosh, this person's not going to clean the house for me, so I'm going to have to clean the house for myself. And when he leaves his stuff around, instead of getting really mad about it, I'm going to try to laugh about it and tease him about it. And I'm going to keep trying to make it easy for him to put things away and see if maybe we can at least change some of his behaviors. But for the most part, I'm going to have to really understand that if I want the house to be neat all the time, it's my thing. And you do that with anything. Make a practice of noticing what you appreciate. And when issues arise, discuss them directly along with your wishes, but don't make it personal. Keep the positive intention model in mind. We have a feedback model that we use here. It's a great thing to use in a relationship. As long as you realize that it's not about you, then you can get those four horsemen, the contempt, the criticism, you can get that out of the conversation, and you can have productive dialogue, and a relationship that was in danger because of the annoying behaviors can switch over and begin to thrive. Okay, 7 steps. I know I have 6 here, but I actually added another one, so there's 7 of them. To finding relationship. First, identify your unmet needs and take responsibility for getting them met. That's the same as the other one, because that's really the key to happiness. It protects you from expecting and pressuring one person to make you happy. You have to know that another person is never going to make you happy, and having another person in your life is not going to make you happy, just like any external situation is not going to make you happy. That's the only thing that's going to make you happy is getting your needs met. Write a list of what you want to feel in your relationship long term once you're past the initial high. Be honest about how often you're feeling that way now and start working on getting there, because that will be a representation of your relationship set point, of your happiness set point. And however you feel right now most of the time is probably going to be how you feel most of the time in the future. So if you're good, you're good. You're going to probably feel the same way. If you're single right now, however you're feeling right now, you're probably going to feel the same way once you've been in a relationship after the honeymoon wears off. If you're not happy with your level of happiness right now, you can work on things inside yourself and get happy whether or not you find the perfect mate. Make a practice of having interactions on a daily basis that make you happy, even with strangers. Flirting is good, listening, understanding, trying to put yourself in people's shoes, taking every interaction you have up to the next level. Mostly we just barely acknowledge each other so that we don't bump into them in the streets. But if you actually look everybody in the eye, say hello, maybe ask them how they're doing, make a casual joke, that's going to make a huge difference in how you feel at the end of the day in terms of your connection points and your love and belonging and community points that you get on happiness. So that helps you be happy regardless of whether you're in a relationship or not. Work on developing and improving friendships other than non-romantic relationships, because the skills that you use to resolve conflict and to listen better in your regular relationships are going to transfer over to your romantic relationships. And in your romantic relationships, more is at stake, so it's good to have those skills down. When you're dating, give someone at least 3 dates, better yet 5, before you decide whether you like them or not, and work towards developing a friendship. Typically, people are pretty protected in their first few dates, so you're not going to get the real person until you've had a few conversations. Build as many good, solid friendships as possible, and understand that the chemistry part will happen on its own. So if you're say, okay, I'm going to work on what I control, I'm going to get to know each of these people that I'm dating, then the other part, you're going to get chemistry, and that's just going to happen. Someone's going to smell good. And but when the chemistry happens and the friendship's there too, that's kind of when you're on your way. So that's sort of a summary of the main points. We also had a great discussion today, and for those of you who are members, definitely look at the full hour discussion that we had to hear people's stories about their relationships and what worked in their relationships and what didn't, and really get a sense for how hard relationships can be for everyone. We're all in this together. That those of us that have long-term relationships have a lot of the same struggles, so it's good that we have each other to talk to. And those of us that don't have relationships have a lot of the same struggles, and it's good to have each other to talk to. So I'm glad you took the time to at least take a listen to this overview. And we have lots more to come on happiness and relationships this month.